Hey, Raymond here from the Beginner Photography Podcast, and I still have all of my Beanie Babies. Yeah. Okay, let's get into today's episode.
Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast with Raymond Hatfield, the podcast dedicated to interviewing world-class photographers to ask them the questions you want answered. Whether you want to be the world's best wedding photographer, family photographer, pet photographer, or you just want to take better photos of your kids growing up, we will get you to start taking better photos today. Here with you as always, husband, father, home brewer, LA Dodger fan, and award-winning Indianapolis wedding photographer, Raymond Hatfield.
Oh, welcome to today's episode. Yeah, that was kind of embarrassing. I definitely still have all of my Beanie Babies, but it's not from like a point of like, I hope that these go up in value. It's that I don't know what to do with them. I don't want to throw them away. I feel like people would want to play with them or so, I don't know. Anyway, if you have any suggestions on what I should do with my Beanie Babies, please let me know. Today I'm really excited for today. I want to be talking about something that when I first started out was something that was incredibly hard to understand, and that was how to stand out. Standing out in your photography is extremely important. But today we're going to talk about how to figure out how to stand out, figuring out what you can do to stand out. But first, guess what? I mentioned last week that I am giving away a copy of Bernie Griffith's book. I thought that I had my copy right here in front of me, but I guess it's up. Oh no, I do have it right here. Okay, cool. It's Success Secrets of a Professional Photographer by last week's guest, Bernie Griffith. I have two ways to win. Last week I started a photography challenge in the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook group. That's one way to win. And then the other way to win was simply by signing up for the Beginner Photography Podcast newsletter. And if you were already part of the newsletter, then you've already been entered. So right now I'm going to go ahead and let you know that the winner is Josh Judge. So Josh, I'm going to go ahead and reach out to you, let you know that you won, and I will get you a copy right away. So I'm really excited for that. That was fun. This book really, honestly, if you don't have it, I'm going to put a link in the show notes of this episode. If you are interested in making money as a portrait or a wedding photographer, and it doesn't mean if you're taking portraits of dogs, of kids, family, whatever it is, you really need this book. You need this book. I still go through this book at least once a year just to make sure that I am on top of it, I guess. You know what I mean? It's really a great roadmap to thinking in the way that you should be thinking as somebody who wants to stay in business for a long time. So, all right. So today I really want to talk, like I said, about standing out. And standing out is it's easier than you're assuming that it is, and it's also much harder than it sounds. So, what do I mean by standing out? Well, let's start, I think, with figuring out why we need to stand out. And one of those big reasons that I hear all the time is competition, right? There's competition everywhere. Like, what am I supposed to do with all this competition? And that's the answer, is you got to stand out. Standing out is what is going to separate you from your competition. And what that means is that, let's look at Netflix. Netflix. TV studios are billion-dollar-a-year industries. Billions. I mean, so much money. I legitimately do not think that people understand how big TV companies are. And yet one day, it took more than one day, Netflix comes to the scene with great content and easy to access content, I guess, at an affordable price. $10 a month? That's like our cable bill. I hate how we still have cable, but my wife insists on having one channel, so we got to have it. We pay well over $100 a month for cable. And Netflix, there's an infinite number Netflix for only $10 a month. That is insane. So they had a unique proposition. One, they had, well, at the beginning, they didn't have their own content, but the price alone was worth signing up for, just giving it a try. And then as time goes on, they started creating their own content, their own TV shows, everything, and it has just exploded. It is truly great. I love Netflix. I never want to cancel Netflix. I use it all the time. But my point being, this isn't like me trying to sell you on Netflix or whatever. But my point is that even though there was competition, like big players, Comcast, Universal, Fox, all these huge studios, Netflix still came out. And in a lot of cases, they're stronger than most TV channels. I saw recently that 70% of adults only watch Netflix. And that number is insane because you know why? There's no commercials on Netflix. Point is, you got to stand out, and Netflix did stand out against a lot of competition. So your excuse of being in a town where there's a lot of other photographers is not an excuse why you shouldn't be trying something new. You shouldn't be following their path. It's more fuel for that, and you have to get over that mindset. You have to do your own thing, and that might not mean anything to you today, right? Do your own thing. Because everybody is different, and everyone has something that they think is unique to them, but actually applies to like 90% of the population, right? So people can relate to you if you think that you're unique. So when I was in film school, I remember having a conversation with my friend Steve. And when I went to film school, I was majoring in cinematography, which is the photography of movies, the dealing with camera stocks, lens choices, lighting, all of that stuff, lots of camera movement. So I remember talking with my friend Steve, who is a director. Directors work with actors and kind of go over the whole feel of the film. And he said, we were talking about like famous cinematographers, and he was saying, this one cinematographer has one shot in every movie where he uses a really long lens, right, like 200 mil plus, which isn't very common in movies. And this other cinematographer only shoots on this one film stock. And he asked me, like, what is going to be your thing? And I thought, like, oh, yeah, I got to have my thing. And I remember, like, giving it so little thought, like, oh, yeah, I could just kind of pick something out of the air, and that's going to be my thing. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll have to figure it out. Maybe I'll just shoot everything on like a 35 millimeter lens. I don't know. I'll just do that. That'll be my thing. I could tell people that that's my thing. And that's how I will stand out. And thinking about that today, it's like, God, that was such a stupid decision. I was just a dumb kid, when I was making these choices. Like, that means nothing today. Because standing out, I guess looking back now, I have found my thing because everybody is different. And it evolves over time, and it naturally comes out. You can't just pick a thing and then go for it. So really, it's all about doing something different. A photographer that I am friends with on Facebook recently did an elopement in a Target store. And you may have seen the photos because they've been picked up and shared by every major news outlet. But why were they picked up by every major news outlet? It's just wedding photos. And the reason why is because they were shot in a Target. It was unique. It stood out. It was different. And I'm not saying that his thing is now going to be shooting in Target stores, but he did something different that stood out, and it worked. Rarely do photographers have a thing, let me get the air quotes in there, a thing that is like, this is what I do, That photographer, Evan Rich Photography, check him out, is not going to exclusively shoot in Target stores because, hey, it got me all this buzz last time. He's not exclusively going to shoot engagements because, hey, it got me all this buzz last time. My point being is that you got to try something different. You got to do something new. And like I said, rarely it's ever like you have this ongoing thing that you do every time that works for you. So don't be afraid, or don't sit there and just pick out like one thing. Like, ooh, I'm going to shoot everything at ISO 100. And if I need more light, I'm bringing in some flashes. Like don't don't go that far. Get to the point to where you see something that you like and then go deeper in it. And if that is shooting everything at ISO 100 and just using a lot of strobes to make something unique and interesting, then there you go. But don't start out like right now saying to yourself, I'm just going to shoot everything at ISO 100 and use a lot of strobes, because you're not going to have that passion for it. You're not going to want to pursue that because it doesn't mean anything to you. It means that you picked something out of thin air and that you're just going to give it a try. And if it doesn't work, then you're not going to have that passion to push through it and keep going to make it work. There are photographers out there like Ryan Brenizer. Ryan Brenizer is a photographer who I'm trying to get on the podcast. I've been trying to get on the podcast. He shoots a panorama of images, stitches them together in Photoshop to make a very unique image. And it's called a Brenizer method. Sam Hurd is another photographer who is always putting things in front of his lens to create interesting effects in his photos, whether it be a ring of fire or a double exposure look through a prism. Even Ansel Adams, like, we're not even just talking about like current photographers. Ansel Adams shot, I believe, all of his photos at f/64. All of his photos. So for some photographers, having the one thing that you do every time is a thing. And that can work. But that's going to come out of curiosity and passion by keep trying, just by doing more of something. Because the more effort that you put into something, you're going to discover new things every time. I still go to weddings. Every single wedding, I learn something new. When I go back and I cull through the images and I edit the images, I look at my images and think, hey, you know what? I took that shot on a whim. I just like, oh, let me grab this shot real quick. I took it, and I really like how it turned out. Let me see if I can replicate that at my next wedding. And then at my next wedding, maybe I'll try to replicate it and add something else in it. Or maybe I'll use a different lens. I don't know. My point is that if you like something, just keep going at it. Just go harder at it. Try to replicate it, and then try to change it up and see what you can get something unique out of it. So what are you going to stand for? And like, this isn't like an accusatory question. Like, I'll turn it around on myself. What do I do to stand out? I'm just trying to be myself. And that is it. And what does that mean? Well, I think because of the internet, the lines are blurred between photographer Raymond and Raymond. I'm sure you have been in a situation where you meet somebody like at work, a new job or something, and they're very professional and, very, I don't want to say uptight, but like very well kept. And then you find out that like they friend you on Facebook or something, and they are not the same person that they are at work as they are in their regular lives that they live. And I think that might have been a case, a few years ago. But as time goes on, that line is getting blurred more and more, because if you're somebody on Facebook and completely different in person, you just come off as like weird. Like, I don't trust you. What is going on here? What are you trying to hide from me? Are you trying to get something from me? So I'm just trying to be the exact same person everywhere all the time. So when that line is getting more and more blurred every day, like, that is great for you. Because like I mentioned earlier, everybody's got these weird things that they think is totally unique to them, but like they're not. I'm sure. And that's what I'm doing, is that I'm trying to share things in the beginning of the podcast that I think are, maybe not that I think are unique to me, but these are weird things about me, in the hopes that you listen and think like, oh man, you know what? My sister still has her Beanie Babies, or, somebody gave all their Beanie Babies to my cousin, or we just think about Beanie Babies and it's like, oh, even though Raymond thinks this one thing applies to him, like, it doesn't. This is a shared experience. Lots of people still have their Beanie Babies. Like, they didn't all just disappear one day. Like, they have to be somewhere. Some people still have to have their Beanie Babies. It's not just me. And I'm trying to share that because I want you to understand that as well. So blur that line. Be the person who you are in real life as you are on the internet. Don't try to become somebody who's like overly professional. I'll tell you what, I did not get into photography to wear a suit and tie every day and go to a six-figure studio and, like high gloss white walls and all this stuff. Like, that's just not me. That isn't me. And if you're watching me on YouTube, this room is kind of like a mess and disorganized as we're packing up and getting ready to move into a new house. And these white walls behind me, just like, I hate them every single day. I do. I wanted to paint this house when we got in, and no, I take that back. My wife wanted me to paint the whole house, but I just wanted to paint this wall. And if I would have just painted this one wall, then she would have convinced me to paint the rest of the house. So I ended up not painting this wall. But the new house, it's definitely going to happen, because that's who I am. I want to express myself. And if I can do that in person and as the photographer, then I'm going to be looked at with more authority, and I'm going to be given more trust to be able to do something random. If you're looked at as the guy who always takes a photo of a couple kissing in front of a tree, and a couple hires you for that, they hire you because they like your photos. Maybe they don't tell you that they love that one shot that you do, and you try to do something else. You try to take a picture with them kissing not in front of a tree, or maybe you're in a location where there's no tree. I don't know. They might get upset because they hired you for that one photo. You're known for that thing. And now what had become your thing is now what is causing you the most amount of drama or pain in your business, if that makes sense. So that's why I encourage everyone to always try new things. I like being who I am. I like being the same person on Instagram stories as I am when I meet a couple face to face and we chat about their wedding. I love that. And that makes me stand out in a lot of ways. So what else am I doing to stand out? So kind of along my journey, I remember hearing somewhere like don't look at other photographers' work because it's only going to influence your own. And oh man, I see both sides of that, right? I see yeah, that's right. I don't want to be other photographers. I want to be myself. So therefore, I'm not going to look at any other wedding photographer's work. But at the same time, like, you kind of have to have your pulse on what is going on. Like, I don't just come up with all of my ideas in my head. I get inspiration from other photographers, and that comes from their wedding photos that they post. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to go out and replicate their photo exactly, but there's plenty of times where so I'll give you an example. Ryan Brenizer, as I told you, he does his Brenizer method. When I was in high school, I had a Motorola, it was called the Motorola Rocker. And it was the first phone that you could sync with iTunes and listen to music. In high school, I rode a motorcycle, so like I wanted to listen to music while I was on my bike, and that phone kind of took care of not having to have an iPod and a phone and a camera with me in all the places. Wow, man, our lives are so much simpler now. Anyway, so that phone had a 0.3 megapixel camera or something, and I worked out of the beach, and it was a beautiful beach. I loved going to work every day, and I would spend some time in the dunes, and I really wanted to take a shot of the ocean, this beautiful big shot of the ocean. And you can't just fit the whole ocean into a 0.0 or 0.3 megapixel photo from a cell phone, from like a 20-year-old cell phone. I don't know, 15-year, whatever it is. So what I did was I took a series of photos back and forth, right? I tried to take a panorama, essentially. So I had 20 or 30 different photos. I brought those photos home, put them on my computer, put it in, at the time it was, what was it? Fireworks? Adobe Fireworks? I think it was Adobe Fireworks. Adobe made Flash, and they had their Creative Series suite, and they also had a program called Fireworks, which was essentially Photoshop. I'm not sure what the difference was, but I had Fireworks, so I just used Fireworks. And then they turned it into Photoshop? Yeah, man, I'm going to have to go back and look at it. It doesn't matter. Anyway, what I did was I layered all those photos side by side, tried to align them up to make it look like it was just one seamless photo. This was not seamless. It looked like I had printed up each single photo and then just laid them on the floor on top of each other. And it didn't look very good, but I kind of liked how it was interesting, so I just kept going at it. I would do it in my buddy's room when we were just all hanging out. I would do it at lots of different places, concerts that I went to, and it was something unique. And I kept just doing that one thing, but it wasn't until I saw the way that Ryan Brenizer did it and would stitch them together in Photoshop and let Photoshop, the computing power, mesh all of the photos together into one single image, and it just like blew my mind. It was like, this is what I have been waiting for. So sometimes you do need to look at other photographers' work to progress yours. And I'm still going forward with that every single day. In fact, check this out. I posted about this in the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook group, but I went to my local camera shop and I found like it looked like an encyclopedia of books. So I was looking at it, but it was all about photography. And they have this book called, let's see if I can kind of get that in there, Great Photographers, all the way from 1840 to 1960. Great photographers in every decade throughout then, and why they're great photographers, what makes them great photographers. And does that mean that I'm trying to copy their style so that I can become a great photographer? No. But with the amount of photos that I see every day from beginners, from established photographers shooting for, 10, 20 years on Facebook and Instagram every single day, sometimes I feel like photos just kind of mesh together. Like they're all kind of all the same photo. And I want to do something different. I want to do something, and by different, I mean something that they did a long time ago, but that they don't do anymore. I didn't buy this book to go through it and figure out like, okay, what could be my thing? But I bought it for inspiration. Like what were they doing back then? What have we stopped doing now? And why have we stopped doing it? Do I like doing that thing that they did? It's just something, once again, unique, something to try, because I might do it and realize that I hate every photo that I take. Or I might look through this book and find something that I enjoy and I give it a shot and it changes my photography. I don't know, but I'm going to give it a shot because it's different. And that's how you're going to stand out. If you take could you imagine if you went to, if you got senior photos taken and you looked at the photos and they were the exact same photos that, your mom had taken of her? The exact same photos, 30 years apart? Come on. Suddenly, your senior photos would not be that special at all. There would be nothing interesting about them aside from the fact that you are in them. Maybe the hairstyles change, but aside from that, they're all the exact same photos. Now, I don't want that. I think that's ridiculous. I do not want my couples to see their wedding photos and think, yep, my mom had this exact same photo in her wedding album. And I just realized maybe I shouldn't have bought a book from the 60s to try to find something different than that. But my point being is that just trying something new and different is what is going to make you stand out. I know that I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I came out with an ad last year about how telling brides that I didn't want to shoot their wedding. I don't shoot weddings because I love the, airy feel to weddings, the love connection. I do it because I love wedding cake. That's it. That's the only reason why I shoot weddings. And it was meant to be sarcastic, and it was taken sarcastically. And because of that, I booked couples who now have the same sense of humor as I do. But they booked me because I stood out. If I had an ad that just said, Indianapolis wedding photographer, booking 2018 dates now, that's not going to stand out. If you hear of a photographer who doesn't want to shoot weddings because they like photography, but they only do it because they love wedding cake, that's going to stand out. If a wedding photographer tells you that they don't want to shoot your wedding, that is going to stand out. And did it work? Yeah, it worked. It stood out, for sure. If I did that same ad, if I ran that ad all the time, would it work? Probably not as effectively, because I would be, kind of watering down its message. So, do I have a thing? I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I don't see it. If I do have a thing, I don't see it. But my couples see it. And that right there is standing out. That's what's important. So now let's talk about finding your thing. Simply sitting down and trying to figure out how to stand out, it's not going to work. It won't be genuine. You won't be truly interested in it. And because of that, you won't be passionate about it. You didn't get into photography to finish a photo session. You got into photography as a creative outlet to photograph. Right? So why would you try to rush through things to try to find your thing? Finding your thing should be ever changing. Wow, I just had like a realization right there. Man, wow. You're never going to have your thing that's going to last forever. Like that might come in spurts at every point. Let me try to kind of word vomit this out and try to make sense of this. At every stage of your photography, you're always going to have your thing. And that will be different at different stages, at different times. But it will always be evolving. And sometimes they'll be more predominant than others, like in the beginning. In the beginning, your thing might just be something that you don't realize because you're not adept to the photography terminology, or you just don't see it because you're just taking the photos the way that you see the photos, and that's how it happens. But really, maybe you are excessively backlighting your subjects, and that's a thing, because you like it. That's why you're doing it. But as time progresses, maybe you'll move on to something else. You'll see something different. You'll do something at a photo shoot that is like, oh, you know what? I kind of like this. So now you'll start doing that and that more at each photo shoot. That'll transform into something else over time. Maybe it'll be your style of editing that will transform your work every time. Some photographers go out there and capture everything in camera. This is it. This is how the photo happened. Here you go. Enjoy. Well, I didn't no retouching, no nothing. This is the photo. Take it or leave it. And some photographers take multiple photos to bring into Photoshop and create worlds that have never existed. And that doesn't degrade the quality of one photographer versus another. It's just that that's their thing. That's what they do different than the other photographer. And that could be a way for you to differentiate yourself as well. But I think that as long as you follow the path of truly enjoying something, of truly loving something, I personally love the look of all those photos of composites, of let's add a tree here and like a swing set, and actually the sky is really spaced. It's like, whoa, these photos are so cool. But you know what I hate? Photoshop. I hate being in Photoshop. It's just not fun to me. It takes way too much time. So therefore, should that be my thing? No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't be my thing. Do I enjoy looking at it? Yeah, I do. Would I enjoy doing it? No. And therefore, I'm just going to say that I don't want that to be my thing. I don't want that to be my thing. I want my thing to be something that I also enjoy. So don't try to force yourself in a direction. Now, there's a difference between learning something and like you can learn Photoshop. I understand Photoshop. I'm proficient in Photoshop for my work, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to become this Photoshop ninja so that I can create these unique worlds. So again, be passionate about something and just realize that it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time because it's always evolving. Standing out, I think, is one of... Okay, how am I going to put this? Standing out is one of the easiest things to do simply because it's just being yourself. However, it takes a long time to get there, to shoot what you like, to try more things, and to do what you love. But when you do that, it will naturally reveal itself. But at the same time, standing out is one of the hardest things to do because it requires constant work. and time, obviously. So you can't today be the person known for something, because it takes work and it takes time and it takes passion. So what does that mean? It means just do what you've been doing. Stop trying to put the pressure on yourself to figure out your thing, and just do. Just go out there, just photograph and do you, and one day you're going to see it. Okay, so earlier I'll give you an example. Earlier I asked myself, what is my thing? What do I do? Do I have something that stands out? What is my thing? And I said, I don't know. But I do and I don't. There are ways that I photograph that I love. So let me grab it real quick. Okay, if you're looking on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, here's this photo right here that I took at a wedding. And I like this photo. Sure, it's backlit. It's like in the woods and stuff like that. And it's cool. I enjoy it. But it wasn't until I got this photo printed that I realized, when I was looking through all of my photos, that I put the couple in the bottom right third of every photo. Every time I go to frame a couple, I put them in the bottom right frame. And that's totally subconsciously. It's just like, I've never given that thought. I've never thought like, oh, that'll be my thing. I'll put couples in the bottom right hand third of the photo. Right there. It'll be great. No, I've never thought that in my life. What I thought was, looking through the camera, I don't want to place them directly in the center. I'll just place them, I'll just use the rule of thirds. And then my camera just naturally moved. My brain told the camera, told my hands where to point the camera. And that was it. And now, whenever I take photos of just a couple, and it's not like a portrait, like it's more of like an environmental shot, they're always in the bottom right third of the photo. But does that make it my thing? I don't know. And maybe it's just a personal preference. But it's something that I do every single time. And I love the way that it looks. So I'm just going to keep doing it, because why not? So that's it. That's all that I wanted to talk about today. I really want you to get out there and just I hope that this relieved some stress, this feeling inside of you of I got to figure out my thing. How am I going to stand out? It takes time. That's it. It takes time. Just keep doing what it is that you love, and you will find it. I promise you. Patience. All right? Okay. That is today's episode. I'm glad that I got that off my chest. I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you did, I really want you to just have fun with photography. Get out there. Like I said in this whole episode, just try something new. I want you guys to be safe. But if you need a little bit more help in your photography, if you're really new to photography and you're still trying to figure out the basics of taking a great photo, I want to invite you to take our 14-day video course. It is completely free, and you can sign up at the Beginner Photography Podcast website. That's beginnerphotographypodcast.com. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, there will be a form for you to sign up for our free 14-day video course. I'm going to send you a video every single day into your inbox for you to watch. It's easy to consume, and the feedback that I've gotten from the people who have taken the course, I was gonna say millions, but that is not correct. There have not been millions of people who have taken the course. From all the other people who have taken the course, the feedback has been really great. And if you need that little extra help in photography, I think that you're going to enjoy it as well. So again, head over to beginnerphotographypodcast.com and sign up today. All right. I love you all. I'm glad that I got that off my chest. I feel better about myself. Hopefully you feel better as well. So until next time, get out, have fun, keep shooting, and be safe. I love you all. Later.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Beginner Photography Podcast. Be sure to join the conversations on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want any links or resources we talked about in today's episode, check out the show notes at beginnerphotographypodcast.com. See you again next week.